So now that you've had some time to learn about the artist Pablo Picasso and study one of his most famous periods of art, Cubism, we're going to dive into creating some facial features based off of the famous paintings you looked at in the Google slide presentation entitled Pablo Picasso. So right here you see a chart that I've already done, and I am going to help you create your own chart like this in your sketchbook or your visual journal. So the idea here is that we're going to begin thinking about how Picasso created facial features from very simple geometric shapes and lines, and how these features that we're recreating, while they can represent the features of our face, such as the nose, mouth, eye, and ear, in a way that helps the viewer to know what they are not drawn in necessarily a realistic manner. So we're going to take inspiration from those paintings that you've been studying, and those paintings aren't going to go away. We're going to continue to reference them, but today what we're going to do is we're going to look at those images and we're going to find inspiration in them for drawing some very simple features. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about what you're going to need. You are going to need a clean page in your visual journal or a clean sheet of paper somewhere. You're going to start with probably a pencil, a ruler. It's always handy to have an eraser. And then we will outline with Sharpie if you have it. If you don't have it, you can outline with a black pencil when you're done. Okay. So let's talk about the first thing we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set our page up to recreate this chart here. So let's go ahead and measure this out. So our journal is 8 inches across. So using your ruler, what you're going to do is you're going to line it up and you are going to mark every 2 inches across the top. So we're going to mark at 2, 4, and 6, okay? I'm gonna slide my ruler down, or actually I'm gonna turn my journal and do the same thing over here. So 2, 4, 6, and 8, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my journal this way again so that my wires are on top. And depending on how your page is oriented, you can decide which part is going to be the top where you put your label. My label is going to be going here in this part of my journal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make our vertical lines to set up the first part of our chart. So I'm going to connect my first dot with the measurement below. I'm going to do that with the next set. And one more time. And what this should create is our 4 columns, because we're going to be working on nose, mouth, eyes, and ears. So we need 4 columns. Now, in each column, we're going to draw 3 facial features. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to set up the horizontal lines. So the first thing I did is I took my ruler and I measured a 1/2 inch from the top. So I'm using this line here for the wires. That's where I line up my ruler for my guide. And 1/2 inch here. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'll do one more just to be sure. And then I'm going to connect those across. Okay, so that's where my heading is going to be listed. All right, the next step is setting up my next lines. We're going to be drawing 2 more lines. And for each of these sections, I made them 1.5 inches. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to go ahead and I'm going to start on the right hand side of my journal, and I'm going to measure 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to show you what 1.5 inches looks like, if I can. Get very close in there. Okay, so 1.5 inches is right here on my ruler. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches here. And then of course, 1/2 inch would be at the 2, plus 1 more inch would be at the 3. Okay, because 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. So we're going to do the same thing in the middle. So again, I am going to measure 1.5 and 3. And then again at the edge of my journal. 1.5 and 3. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect those with my ruler. And draw a straight line across. Okay, so we're going to go ahead back up, zoom out so we have a better view. Okay, so now we have our chart set up, nose, mouth, eye, ear. And what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through drawing these very simple facial features in Pablo Picasso Cubist inspired manner. So these aren't identical necessarily to what you would see in the portraits, but they're definitely inspired by them, and you can see where some of the ideas came from when you look at the portraits I've selected. All right, so let's go ahead and draw this first nose. This is going to be pretty straightforward, right? So we're going to do a nice sharp angle with a diagonal line. And then we're going to bring the line straight across. Okay? Once I have that, I'm going to draw a circle on the end of the line. It's not actually going to touch it. You can adjust the size of the circle to make it smaller or larger. And then kind of a teardrop shape here. So I'm going to start by doing a straight line, and then I'm going to round it. Okay? Easy peasy. All right, let's go ahead and do the next one. On this one, I just changed the direction of the nose. You could flip this too if you wanted to and draw it the other direction. So just for variation, on this one, I'm going to draw it facing the left-hand side. Start pretty much the same way. Nice sharp diagonal line. We're going to draw a line straight over. And then what we're going to do is we are going to come up from here. So we start at that point and bring it up almost like a half a heart. So up and over. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do, again, almost think of these as like, if this is a line here, we're going to do these like a slanted U. So I'm going to do a larger one on this part, and then a smaller one over here, like that. Okay? And then we're going to switch the nose so it's facing back to the right-hand side. Again, do that nice sharp angle. These are such fun and easy noses. Not realistic, but still a lot of fun, and when combined with the other features, we can definitely recognize them as noses. We're going to turn this into a triangle. I am going to do a half circle here, do one more triangle, and it's going to be smaller. And inside of that, I'm going to draw a smaller circle. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the mouth. Now, of course, if I am moving too fast for you, what you're going to do is you're going to stop, pause the video, and rewind it as necessary. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our first mouth drawing. So in order to do this, what I did is I came up with an arch, swoop down, and over. So you'll notice this curve is lower and not as long, okay? And then what I'm gonna do for this part is I'm going to come up and just kind of trace the outline of this. I'm gonna bring that back up in a line here, okay? Now I'm going to come down from this point here. I'm going to come down. And it's going to curve back up and into this line. Okay? And then we're just going to come here. And go like that. All right. Let's move on to our next mouth. Okay, so for the next one that we're going to do, we are going to start with the line that goes through the two lips. So I'm going to start with a line, just gently curves. Okay, now I'm not going to start at the end of the line. I'm going to move my pencil over a little bit, and I'm just going to come up like a sharp mountaintop or a letter M. I'm going to bring this down, and then I'm going to intentionally make this one a bit smaller. So it's not going to come up as high, and it's going to finish out here. Okay? All right, so let's come down here, and we're going to start this bottom lip a little further over. So we're going to come over here, so the lips aren't actually lining up perfectly. And we're going to do a nice slanted diagonal line down. A line up, line over, another diagonal to the right, and then a sharp line there. Okay? Then we're going to do a funny looking one over here. So these would be the lips from the side or in profile. So what I did is essentially, it's a heart, so if you turn your book this way and you just draw a thin heart, so I started by drawing a line, and drawing a thin heart on there, and then I put a triangle on the end. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our eyes next. So for this eye, we're going to start by drawing actually this line. So you don't want to go too far at the top because you're going to need room for the eyebrow. And this is not going to be super curved. It's going to be a little bit flatter. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is you'll notice this has almost a point at the bottom. So I'm going to come over to here. So I'm not starting at the end. I'm moving my pencil over. And I'm thinking about making this a little bit sharper. Okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a curved line here and a curved line here. I'm going to mimic this line, and then I'm going to mimic this bottom line like that. And then what I'm going to do is come back in and add that eyebrow over top. Okay? Now we're going to come down here, and we are going to start by doing a straight line, comes over, leave some room on the end because we've got to add this little detail here. I'm going to come from this and I'm going to think about it coming back out like I'm making a triangle and then like a straight line down. Okay, now I'm going to do a curved line here, curved line here, circle in the center. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this, it's almost like an eyelash at the corner of the eye, like a starburst eyelash. So we're going to come up, down, out, over, down, and back up. And then I'm also going to be adding this shape here. So I'm going to start about here and I'm just going to curve this up to there. So I can go ahead in here, just erase that little bit of pencil line where there was no overlap. Okay. All right. Then we have to put this little curve in, and that eye is done. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we're going to come down here, and the first thing I did was I started with a nice big oval shape. Remember to pause and rewind as needed. And then I just outline that shape on the inside. And then I'm just going to draw a circle on the inside of that. I'm going to come off of the edge of this, draw my triangle. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on the edge of this, very similar to this one. I'm going to come up and out. Sharper one down here. Back up. And then of course I'm going to add this line above it. Okay. Now, the ears. Okay, our last feature that we're going to work on. So these are really nice because they're pretty simple. We can do them pretty quickly and they're going to work together pretty nicely to create something really cool as we move through the lesson. Okay, so for this one, what I did is I drew a figure 8. So I'm going to leave a little room towards the top and I'm just going to come up and back around. Okay. From here, I'm going to draw in a teardrop shape. And of course, you can refine and improve your drawings before you outline them in Sharpie, which I always do. I always refine them. I don't always outline everything in Sharpie, but you can take the time to refine these before you outline them in Sharpie. And then what I did here is I just came up off of the side of this and extended this down to here. Okay. All right, here's a funny one. It kind of reminds me of Shrek a little bit here. So I moved it a little bit over. We're gonna draw an oval. So this is not really a circle, it's more of an oval. I'm gonna do one more on the inside. And half a circle. And then to get that funny shape, think of it as being like a triangle that comes out. And then you're just gonna round that. Instead of having it finish in the sharp point, you're gonna curve it. Okay, so here we're gonna come down and we're gonna start by drawing an oval shape again. We're not gonna finish the oval this time. So we're gonna come up, down, back up. Okay, so when we get here, instead of closing it, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little hook on the end. So this one comes up and out, this one comes up and down. Okay? From there, this is almost like a cursive J. So what I do is I'm going to come up, a line down, and a line there. Okay? And then from there, all I'm going to do is draw a little circle in here. Okay, so now that I have all of these features drawn out, I'm going to go ahead and label them. Nose, mouth, eye, ear. Okay, so then what you can do, depending on which you would prefer, you can take either of your Sharpies, and again, if you don't have a Sharpie, you can go ahead and do this with black colored pencil if you want. But we do have another step that we're going to be doing to this, so I definitely would suggest you outline it. You don't want to lose these pencil lines, or at least outline it really darkly in pencil if you don't have a black colored pencil and you don't have any Sharpies. So what I would do once I refined all of my drawings, that means when I'm talking about refining your drawing, what it means is that I would take the time to go back in and erase lines, and if maybe something didn't look quite right, go back in and adjust it until it does, or until I'm satisfied with it. So, you know, I don't just draw things perfectly the first time and move on. I spend time making adjustments to my artwork to try and improve the overall quality of it. So when we talk about refinement, it's going back into your work and adjusting it so that it meets your expectation, so that it communicates what you want it to, and it looks the way you want it to. So art takes practice and perseverance. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when we get to talking about refining your work. So once I'd refined all of my drawings, the next thing that I would do, that you will do, is you're gonna go back in with your Sharpie and you are going to trace over these features very neatly so that you have a nice chart showing you all of these different designs that we've come up with. Okay, so that's what you're going to do now, and then when you finish this, we'll come back and we'll do the next part.